Hey guys, Chad here for Kayak Bassin TV, and today we're going to talk about fishing and rain. All right, so notice I didn't say fishing in the rain. I didn't say fishing before the rain or fishing after the rain. I said fishing and rain. We're going to talk about the effects of rain across the board. So when it comes to the best time to fish, the best time to fish is when you can fish, right? There's the whole when you could versus when you should. But knowing how to prepare for a trip can definitely contribute to your success or lack of success. In my 30, 60, 90 rule, you hear me talk about the fact that it's 60% knowledge, 30% preparation, 10% luck, and you move that stuff around in the buckets depending on how much of one you don't do, how much of one you do or how much of one you don't do. So here's the thing. When it comes to fishing with rain, there's some key things to remember. All right, always remember that it's food, oxygen, and temperature are the big things that are going to position your fish. That's a staple of understanding how everything else relates. So the food, obviously it's fall right now. Like it's legally fall. We're October 4th today, but it hasn't acted like fall yet in most of the Southeast where I'm from. And last week in Wisconsin, it was 95 degrees. So it hasn't acted like fall pretty much anywhere in the US yet. But the days are shorter, so the fish know fall is coming. With these first few fronts that come through, it's a great opportunity to get out there and use search baits and try to find fish. So I like to fish before the rain and be aware of where the fish were. I like to fish during the rain, which is difficult right now because we're filming Kayak Bassin TV. So we took an opportunity to get off the water and film some tips and tactics and shoot some promo pieces for you guys that'll be coming in the next couple of weeks. But let's talk about the effects of after the rain. Everybody knows when the barometer's dropping and the front's coming, it fires things up, and that's a really easy time to catch fish. Most people know that if you're on the fish right before the rain, if you're fishing during the rain, it's going to agitate the surface, and that brings some of the bigger fish up. It helps you in clear water situations like we're facing here in Arkansas. But what's awesome about post-frontal and post-rain is that it stains the water up a little bit. But the question is, how much is too much? In a clear to ultra clear situation, any stain is good because it's going to help kind of keep your bait from being identified as a fraud. In muddy water situations, like most of the Southeast in rivers and reservoirs and lakes that are river fed, they're going to get really muddy. So you're looking for those mud lines, you're looking for those edges, you're looking for those ledges and places where that water hasn't yet gotten too murky for the fish to be able to chase lures, to chase bait and things like that. But let's talk about the variables that are going to position the fish. The questions you got to ask yourself is, the body of water you fish in, is it spring fed, creek fed, or river fed? If so, how many of those inflows are there? All right, and then how has the rain moved relative to those bodies of water? In other words, if you've got a lake and you've got a northern creek that drains into it and the rain is moving north, the effects are going to be longer lasting, okay? If you've got a southern creek that flows in from the side, or an eastern creek flowing into the southeast side of a lake or reservoir, or if you've got one that flows in and out east and west, it's going to be a little bit different of effect because of the way that the water flows into that body of water. So you can use that to your benefit. Now, is it a dam, right? Is it a lake that generates? If it's a lake that generates, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be generating to pull the water from the places where those storms are going. So you have to take that into effect. So current becomes a factor. But all of those things lead to, where are the fish going to position? The first thing they're going to do is chase the food. Obviously, oxygen is not that big of a deal right now, but there's something to keep in mind that I'll talk about towards the end of the video. And then there's temperature, okay? Here's where temperature starts to get tricky. This time of year, the water temperature starts to cool down. When you have these cold fronts move in, or these cool fronts move in, the rain is colder than the water that the fish have been living in. That colder water is heavier and denser than the water that they're living in, and that cold water kind of settles through the water column. What ends up happening when that happens, especially with prolonged cold rain, is it starts the turnover process. We'll talk about turnover completely in a different video, but the simplistic version of turnover is the upper part of the water column gets colder, both from overnight lows, fronts and rain, and just the fact that the average temperature is getting cooler and cooler. The upper part of the water column is cold, it's heavier because it's denser water, it sinks down to the bottom, the warmer water is forced to the top, and then that keeps happening as the overnight lows warm that upper column up until the water column stratifies, and then the fish reposition. What happens in the beginning is that colder water sinks to the bottom, and when it sinks to the bottom, it's a lot like when Wile E. Coyote jumped off of a cliff in the cartoons when we were kids. Well, most of us when we were kids. If you are kids watching this and you don't know what I'm talking about, just search a Wile E. Coyote video, and when he hits the bottom of the cliff, there's a poof that comes up. That's the dust cloud. That's exactly what happens when that cold water gets to the bottom in a reservoir or a lake, and there's silt that has settled there, okay? That stuff is kicked up off the bottom, which makes that bottom foot to forefoot really murky. It makes it really turbid, but more importantly, there's a lot of suspended particulate matter in the water column in that portion that makes it irritating for the fish. It gets in their gill plates. It makes it difficult for them to find forage. It makes them difficult to detect them through their lateral line because there's so much stuff interfering with their sight, with their feel, and with their ability to smell and their ability to breathe. So you don't want to be fishing that part, okay? If you are going to fish the bottom, you want to find places where it's deeper, the deepest, stillest water you can find, meaning water that's not affected by an inflow, water that those fish have pulled off into for safety and security, because security for a fish is depth, security for a fish is lack of movement, and security for a fish is a place where they have an escape route, okay? Generally, that's the main river channel, ledges, big bends and creeks, and places where they can get tucked in and be away from the turbidity and the change. It's a lot like us going inside and grabbing a jacket and sitting on the couch. If they don't have a couch, that's their couch. The factors that you have to keep in mind, though, is the bait fish are going to be activated in much a different way. A lot of times the wind blowing to one side of the lake is what every angler says, oh yeah, fish that wind blowing side. It's going to blow all that plankton and zooplankton, phytoplankton, all that stuff over there, which is going to agitate the filter feeders, which is going to bring in the next level predator, which is going to bring in the bass. And that's true in a lot of cases. But if you have a really, really, really cold rain and a really hard wind blowing to the shallowest side of a particular body of water, it will shock the fish and they'll pull off deep, and they're not going to be in that shallow water until everything stabilizes, which could be 3 to 5 days. And if you're fishing a 2-day tournament, or if you're just out on the weekend fishing for fun, that's going to be problematic for you. So what you want to find is that first safe, secure zone, that 6 to 10 foot transition area, offshore humps. You'll want to find secondary points, not the long skinny points that they move up onto and back off of really quickly, but those ones that have some structure change. Now, the difference between structure and cover, structure is something that's permanent, something like rocks, docks, something that's going to be there. Cover is the stuff that can come and go. It can be moved with current, it can rot, deteriorate, and go away. So keep that in mind when I'm talking about structure and cover. So you want to find structural changes, big rocks, ledges, drop-offs, and things like that. And that's where these fish are going to position themselves in these early fall initial weather changes. When the weather starts to feel more fall, when you put on a jacket, they're going to put on a little bit of depth, right? They're going to get out there in that 8, 10, 12 feet of water. The moment it stabilizes, though, is that magic time. So tomorrow we're going to fish after this front. We're going to find those flats that are near deep water. I hate rules, but I mentioned the 60-30-10 rule, so I do subscribe to some of them. But the 20 foot to 20 foot rule is one that is good for starting your scouting. Okay, I'm going to end the video with this, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this entire concept in part 2 of the video. But the 20 for 20 rule is what I want you to focus on when trying to find these fish. You want 20 foot of depth within 20 yards of movement, meaning that fish doesn't have to swim more than 60 to 80 feet to be able to drop off in there and then be able to move back to feed. That's where the bait fish are going to go first. That's when they're going to position themselves at creek mouths. What's exciting about this time of the year is this is going to be that push. This is going to be that switch that turns on the conveyor belt that gets those shad to start moving up the creeks. If you can be the first one there instead of hearing about everybody else smashing them in the backs of creeks, and you can follow them all the way in and follow them all the way out, you've got 4 to 6 weeks of ridiculously awesome fishing, probably the best fishing of the year, and your best chance of catching the biggest fish on that particular body of water, even more so than in the spawn, because during the spawn, people have been holed up for the winter. Now they're excited, they're fishing longer, they're staying on the water longer. In the wintertime, people just spend less time on the water. You've got it to yourself. So you've got a better chance of catching big fish. You've got a better chance of catching quality fish, and you definitely got a better chance of catching numbers of fish when they start feeding up for the winter, following this shad migration up into the creek arms. So find yourself a creek mouth, especially if it's not an inflow creek. Find yourself a hump near that entrance. Find yourself a search bait, a spinner bait, a crankbait. And this is one of the times when I break out my first real hardcore lipless crankbait rod and my lipless crankbait setup, and I really start to kind of mop the water up, trying to find out where those fish are, and then I'll get more pinpoint after I locate them. Get that lipless crank, get that big spinner bait, get it down deep, work deep to shallow, that DTS concept. And then once you find them, see if you can repeat that in places that are just like that. Don't sit on a spot and just wear your fish out. When you find a fish, open up your phone, open up your Google Maps, and look at where you're at and try to figure out if there are other places like that on a body of water. I'm going to tell you right now, there's a rule out there that says don't leave fish to find fish. That rule is for people that don't consistently catch fish, and that rule is for people that found the fish and didn't expect to. If you plan on catching fish consistently, if you plan on becoming a better angler, you better leave fish to find fish, because once those fish leave, if you can't find them, then you're out of the fish. I'm Chad Hoover with Kayak Bassin TV. Hope you guys like this video. Do me a favor, comment below and tell me what you think about this concept, this type of video, whether you like these very analytical videos. We're going to get out on the water tomorrow, shoot part 2 of this video where I actually put it into use. I'm going to show you the maps. I'm going to show you what I'm looking at, the variables that I'm considering in the places that I'm fishing. Hopefully you can do the same thing to become a better angler. Smash that thumbs up button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't. If you've been here a while and you don't get a notification every time you see this beautiful face pop up on your YouTube channel, hit that bell over there on the side, and then don't forget to leave a comment below. Engage in conversation in the comment section. That's the only way we all get better. This Kayak Bass Fishing Brotherhood is a great way for us to all become better anglers, and you can only do that by helping each other. I can't do it all for you. So we'll see you guys next time on Kayak Bassin TV. Like, go. We're done. It's like you've been here this long, and it's time to leave. Go. Bye.